Ukraine's allying itself with Poland in that manner means that I think Putin will eventually get declare some sort of general war to exist between Russia and Ukraine, and have it defined in a way that extends into Poland. I think Poland has committed suicide.
Scott Ritter warning there that the deepening support for Ukraine, which is coming from NATO, the United States, and now Poland, is risking escalating this conflict into a much larger one and forcing Vladimir Putin's hand. Scott Ritter's come in for some criticism in recent days over his analysis. So the first thing I'm going to do is let you hear his core analysis of the risks he thinks everyone's taking right now with this war.
Because if they simply stop this after the liberation of the Donbass, this is a never-ending conflict because Ukraine has not surrendered. And they will continue to receive billions of dollars of military assistance and rebuild their military. And this will be a forever problem for Russia. That's what I call a strategic defeat. That's what the United States wants to happen. The United States' objective here is to bleed Russia white, basically to get Russia involved in a forever conflict, a new Vietnam, a new Afghanistan. And if Russia simply says, we're done, we're calling it quits, then they are in a quagmire of their own making. I don't think Russia's stupid enough to do that. I don't think Russia can accept a strategic defeat, which means that there will have to be some sort of intervention by the Russian president to the Duma, seeking broader authorities. And I think Russia was just granted a gift. If it is true that Poland has sent 2 battalions in, if it's true that Poland is in the process of mobilizing 15,000, that changes the dynamic of this conflict. It goes from a simple regional dispute over the security of the Donbass to a broader conflict between a NATO-backed nation and the Russian Federation over Ukraine. And Ukraine's allying itself with Poland in that manner means that I think Putin will eventually declare some sort of general war to exist between Russia and Ukraine, and have it defined in a way that extends into Poland. I think Poland has committed suicide, and also gives authority to deal with the eastward expansion of NATO, which means Russia will have a authorized green light to deal with Finland if necessary, if Finland joins NATO and threatens. And when that happens, you'll see the mobilization of 2.5 million men. And it's a game changer. It's suddenly NATO's now going to have to deal with a bigger Tom Brady coming on the playing field.
And while, yes, there are noises coming out of Washington and some media in the United States that it's time to start talking peace, Scott Ritter points out that that's just not on the cards because Russia has not achieved its objectives, its stated objectives.
There's no way Russia can avoid this, because anything less than this is a strategic defeat for Russia, literally a strategic defeat, because they will have not accomplished any of their stated objectives. And even if they try to spin it away, it sounds like Joe Biden declaring victory when the last C-17 took off from Kabul. Really, Joe? That's a victory? Everybody knew what happened. And if Russia stops this fight short, with Zelensky in power, NATO building up a Ukrainian military, Azov battalion still existing, it's not a strategic victory, it's a strategic defeat.
So either way, Russia has got to proceed. But there is some light at the end of this dark tunnel, because Ritter does admit that if the issue of Finland and Sweden can be parked and is not a pressing military threat to Russia, that therefore would allow Russia to concentrate on just dealing with the Ukrainian and Polish situation and mean that there wouldn't be a full multi-million man mobilization, but only a partial but large mobilization. However, that's just one possibility. Let's look at the situation on the ground right now. The conflict zone still tends to be hot down here in the southeast of Ukraine. But I'd like you to notice, here's the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, and all the way up here is Warsaw. But if you look from this sea here in the north of Poland straight through Poland and through Ukraine down to Odessa and the Black Sea, you have a zone which would literally stand as a wall between the West and the East, which could extract tolls out of both. And so here you see perhaps the reason why this increasing collusion between Poland and Ukraine out of mutual interest. This is very dangerous, but let's take a look at the situation on the ground here now in the southeast. It's around Severodonetsk here that we're seeing the current key point here being this bridge, which has been taken out in recent days by the Russians. The reason for that is there are Ukrainian forces on the eastern side of that river, and the question to them in recent times has been, will you withdraw across this bridge here, taking as much of your equipment as you can with you, because you're not going to be able to hold? And they haven't. And the Russians have now taken out the bridge. If they do withdraw now, they will leave a lot of heavy equipment behind them in Severodonetsk. So that's considerable pressure coming on Ukrainian forces there at the moment from the Russian. Here's the actual bridge itself, as you can see here, taken out. And it looks like that was taken out by commandos and not by an aerial bombardment. So the Russians have the ability to penetrate deep into Ukrainian territory and commit acts of sabotage, it seems, from this footage. Russia is waging a slow war of attrition on Ukrainian forces in the southeast, and there's no guarantee that incoming equipment from the West will change the balance very soon because of its quality, lack of training, and also because, for example, overnight a Caliber missile was used by Russia to take out a railway station and incoming armaments which were coming in. This attack was on a location which is to the northwest of Kiev. So there's also indications that we are not seeing Ukrainian air deployment, perhaps because they haven't got any aircraft left, or what they do have left they're keeping in reserve. So there are no guarantees here. This is a slow war of attrition, and Scott Ritter does make one point in conclusion. He says that it may indeed suit Vladimir Putin, rather than to escalate at this point, but to allow this slow war to play out and to allow the economic effects on the West, particularly Europe, to deepen and sicken them against the prospect of continuing war. But let's take a look at that pace of war on the ground with an ordinary private and Patrick Lancaster, a Russian private, and Patrick Lancaster, the irrepressible reporter in Ukraine, as they just a short distance from the front line survey the current situation.
Вот запах идет, вот здесь вот он где-то.
Это труп?
Да, да, да.
And you can see that building right there. That is actually in Ukraine-controlled territory. So the soldier we're with says that that building is actually Ukrainian position, military position. So still pretty far away. I don't know if a sniper can make that far of a shot, but they could probably see us from here at least.
Вот, и они сюда дальше выходят. Вот где-то. Дальше.
Ага.
Вот здесь вот где-то. И тут начинается бой. Получается, они под перекрестным огнем оказались. Здесь и гранаты, и все остальное. Взрывали их прям жестко. Били, долбили.
Угу.
Вот. Много раненых. Тот бой, вообще там человека 2, что ли, ушли. Остальных всех унесли,
So that is the front line there, and these are the Western weapons which they're finding there, capturing them from the Ukrainians.
And they say there's a few more things that they've captured from Ukrainians here that are foreign made, not part of the Western's lethal aid supplies.
Сейчас это. там, смотрите, нам снайпер простреливает здесь.
So, and we can see here that, let's look down here, we can see here that this is an small D, which is, I believe, also part of the aid from Great Britain, and these are the in-laws, which are also from them. Можно сказать, что это все?
Ну это их оружие, ну, каким они против нас воюют. Кто им там поставляет, я не знаю, но это вроде польский пулемет. Такой, вроде нормальный.
So he's highlighting what he says is a Polish machine gun. He has no direct knowledge of that, but he's told by others he's been fighting with that that is a Polish machine gun there, along with Great Britain.
Да, это ШМО-D из Великобритании, кроме этого. Но, как вы знаете, это Польша?
Ну как, пацаны сказали, говорят нам, это польский пулемет. Я не знаю, я не разбираюсь, там что, какой-то, какая модификация, может немецкий, может польский, ну скорее всего польский.
И когда вы...
Thanks to Private Ryabov of the Russian Armed Forces and to Patrick Lancaster for that report. But as you see, it is a necessarily slow battle, and much of what's going on in Ukraine is low-grade skirmish front line stuff like that. But it is counterpointed by aggressive forward pushes in other areas where Russian forces are continuing to push back the Ukrainians and to diminish the capacity of Ukrainian forces to further resist. Time, in this case, is on the side of Russia. And you can expect that to be a continuing defining meme for them. Private Ryabov maybe can leave us on one interesting final point on that. In a conversation there, he says, as we say in Russia, he who comes to us sword in hand, by the sword shall perish. I hope the neocons and the Poles are listening. In the case of the neocons, I don't think they are, they never do. But you can expect a lot of posturing from the political establishment in the United States and elsewhere about the need for peace and the need for some kind of a long-term solution to these issues. Now, a lot of posturing while meanwhile they continue to supply the arms, continue to try and play the long strategy and bleed Russia dry. Not going to happen. But there's another reason why, besides the economic ticking time bomb in Europe, that suits Vladimir Putin playing the long game into the fall, and that's the end of the neocon dominance of the United States political agenda coming in November, when their base in the Democratic Party is about to be destroyed. There's another ticking time bomb. By November, Europe will be in a desperate state also. It may suit Vladimir to play the long game here. We'll see. I'll be back with more on that, and I hope you can join me for it. But in the meantime, for breakfornews.com, this has been Fintan Dunn reporting. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.